favorite things to cover over here on my channel are mysteries, and not just any mystery, strange disappearances. In the early 1900s, in December, 3 lighthouse keepers would disappear. Nobody knows what happened to them, and their bodies were never found. This would be dubbed as the Flannan Isles disappearance. Thomas Marshall, James Ducat, and Donnick MacArthur were all well-seasoned lighthouse keepers. A dreadful accident has happened over at the lighthouse. This was a message recorded by a ship to its captain in 1900 about a lighthouse on Flannan Isle that went dark. Although the terrain on the island was rugged, this was no match for well-seasoned lighthouse keepers who had years under their belts. The lighthouse was constructed in 1899, only a year before the disappearance of these 3 lighthouse keepers. It's reported that the men had gone missing around December 15th of 1900, and by December 26, 1900, there was a search party on the island looking for them. The captain of the ship that launched the search party added in his logs that when they arrived, there was no signs of life on the island. The captain who was launching the search rescue for the 3 men walked 160 steps up to the cabin on the island where the men were staying. When he opened the door, he saw a scene frozen in time. The only creature in the cabin that was living was a lone canary. The captain reported that the clock on the wall stood silent, the table was set, and there was no signs of struggle in the cabin. The captain chose not to look any further for the men. He darted out of the cabin onto the ship to find more sailors to help him in the search party. One of the most mysterious things that they found in the lighthouse while searching for the men was one lone oilskin. An oilskin was to help the men during the rough weather and terrain when they went outside of the cabin. All 3 oilskins should have been missing, but only 2 were gone and 1 was left, and this told the captain that one of the men must have left in a hurry. During the time of the men's disappearance, there was a terrible storm rolling by. It had thrown ton boulders over, it had bent metal railings, and it had left the terrain thrashed. One of the most common theories is that the storm swept up all men into the sea, where they ultimately lost their lives. They dubbed the men's disappearance as an accident. But what doesn't make sense is this accident has never happened again in the history of the lighthouse being up and running. Another thing that was debunked was the way that the wind was rolling. It was rolling against the island rather than away from the island. So rather than men be pushed out to sea and swept up on their feet, they would be pushed back towards the island. Another common theory is that a fight broke out between the 3 men. One of the men struck down with cabin fever and he was ready to go home. He succumbed to his mind and he lashed out and then ultimately killed the other 2 lighthouse keepers. False stories started to surround this disappearance of the men, and it's claimed that in the logbook, one of the men wrote down that the other 2 men were praying and crying to God to save them during this storm. But this wouldn't make sense because all 3 of these lighthouse keepers had years under their belt and they were very well experienced. None of these logbook entries have ever been discovered to be true, but what we do know is their bodies were never found and the disappearance was just dubbed as an accident. And an accident like this has never ever occurred again. After this accident, a Utah newspaper actually released the story and dubbed the lighthouse as the most lonely lighthouse. That's it for today's story, you guys. Let me know what you thought about this in the comments down below. Give me a like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.